everybody, and welcome back to Thanks, It's Vintage, the wine podcast by VDV Select at Vino Divino. That is always a little bit of a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah. And we are filming today at our Kenmore Square location. Very excited. Love this store too.
So beautiful.
It's very pretty here. And Red Sox season is upon us.
It is.
Yes.
It's begun.
But let's start with introductions. Once again, we are your co-hosts, Andrew.
And Lydia.
And I am the manager of VDV Select, our concierge program.
And I am the district manager of Vino Divino.
Wonderful to have you all here today. Very excited for this
Very
one.
excited about this topic.
It's going to be great.
Yes.
Little sneak peek. We are going to be talking about Rioja. I love Iberian wines. Anything from the Iberian Peninsula, Spanish,
Just
Portuguese.
Spanish. Yeah. All Spanish wines.
Oh, so good.
So fascinating as well. There's just so much to learn.
Yes.
Rioja is one of the most famous regions, and there are just so many more.
It really is. And what's really cool is that these wines come from a really great producer that doesn't have the same kind of, I would say, the same kind of, they're not out there. They're just not out there in the way that like Lopez de Heredia is. If somebody is really a lover of Rioja, but they're not too knowledgeable in terms of wine, they might know Lopez de Heredia. These are, Viña Tondoña, like these are the names of vineyards that people might know because these are wines that are exceptional, that are held back aged for an extended period of time, absolutely gorgeous, and they're also very allocated. So when they do come out,
very popular in the US.
Yes,
Those
very
wines
popular.
are in demand here in a way that potentially they're not in every export market.
I would say that that's true. But right now we have Martínez Lacuesta. That is the producer we're going to be tasting today. They are also in Rioja. They also make incredible wines, and they do a very similar kind of hold back age for an extended period of time, just like Lopez de Heredia.
Quite traditionally minded.
Yes.
They seem to be. I mean, you know them better than I do, but
absolutely
in my
fantastic.
research, definitely seems like they are on the traditional end of the spectrum.
Yes, very traditional. That's the style I like for Rioja. I know there are some producers out there that are newer and pushing the boundaries, but I really do like that old school style, the more traditional style of Rioja with a little bit of newer winemaking techniques kind of blended in, but not losing sight on where they came from and how they got here.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to creating a wine that's truly representative of this region. And they definitely do that. And
also, let's talk about their history.
Yeah, we could talk about the history of this whole region and the producer as well.
The producer.
Side note, I did get to taste with the vineyard rep Oscar Alvarez when he was here a couple weeks ago, and just incredibly knowledgeable. I know. I was really hoping you would be here for that.
That was sad.
We had some scheduling conflicts, but it's okay. It's okay. We can't get to everybody.
Can't get to everything.
But incredibly knowledgeable, absolutely wonderful, and just really, I mean, there are some vineyard reps you meet and it's a little bit of a dud. They don't do much, they don't say much. It's like, what are we doing? But this is one of those individuals who absolutely
fully engaged in the process.
Knows,
Nice.
knows what you're looking for, knows what you want to know, wants to impart that knowledge on you, wants to make you feel like you are about to pour a literal place, the terroir, into your glass, and wants you to understand exactly what you're tasting and smelling. So could not ask for better person to be representative of this vineyard. So yeah, let's jump on into the history. We can jump into the history of the region first.
Let's start there.
Yeah. So I have, of course, taken some notes because I think, there's this, when it comes to wine professionals, I think that we sometimes get looked at as like magicians when we do things like blind tasting or when we, pull out an incredible amount of knowledge, right? And yes, we do have a lot of knowledge, but I want to make sure everyone knows we take a lot of notes, and we do
Oh, yeah.
review our notes. And I have had to take some notes here because there's a lot of information to give, and I don't want to give too much, and I also don't want to miss certain things. So
Yeah.
that's why we do
And
this.
also, the internet exists. So we did learn all this stuff very, very intensively at one point when we were studying.
Exactly.
But then it's always necessary to refresh. It's
Right.
always necessary to make sure we fully understand.
Exactly.
And we tap back into it every now and then.
Well, to give you all a brief overview of Rioja, I mean, just like most other areas in Europe, it has ancient origins going all the way back to the Phoenicians, and then eventually the Romans, when they conquered the Iberian Peninsula, they too brought viticulture. There's actually some evidence to suggest that there is an ancient grape that they took from Bordeaux and brought down to the region of Rioja that kickstarted Rioja, and may have been the origin of grapes such as Tempranillo. And that's a really interesting fact I found out about Rioja's history. We don't have conclusive evidence, but we have enough to suggest that this is likely what happened, which is really funny because it won't be the last time in Rioja's history that Bordeaux has somehow played a part in their history.
It's
so
true.
starting
Yeah.
all the way at the beginning, which is what's funny, it already starts there. But then we get to the Middle Ages, the monasteries. One of the most crucial roles played was by San Milan de la Cogolla. I know I'm not saying that absolutely perfectly.
We're really trying.
I am not a Spanish speaker, but they played a crucial role, this particular monastery, in preserving and advancing winemaking techniques after the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, this is not the first area of Europe we've seen this. We've seen this in Burgundy. The monasteries really are
The monasteries led wine production
yeah, and their record keeping was meticulous.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
in terms of like true genetic manipulation, like they were the ones that figured out properly how to propagate and grow certain things to the benefit of the product.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just incredible the amount of information they left us with that has truly helped these regions shape themselves into what they are today. Now, of course, we move on, from the Middle Ages. Eventually, we get to the year 1102 is actually when they got the first legal designation as a region. And that was from King Sancho I of Navarre. So this is when Spain was not yet coalesced, or coalesced, more so. Spain wasn't one entity yet.
No.
Still a number of kingdoms. Navarre was one of them.
And that's actually a very fascinating part of Spain, is that there are so many influences on this one country that we now perceive as one country, but for so long was very pocketed in its geography. There are regions that are entirely isolated from others.
Oh, yeah.
Without cars and planes involved.
I mean, think of the Basque region.
Yeah.
They're also pretty isolated, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's really
then,
fascinating.
Obviously, there are certain people that would disagree that it is one nation at the moment.
Yes. Actually, if you go to
there
Spain,
is a lot of individual pride in regions.
For sure. If anyone does travel to Spain, if you have been to Spain, you probably have noticed that there's a lot of pride in their regions. I've been to Andalusia, which is the southern region of Spain. That's where Sevilla is. It's where Granada is. That's where sherry comes from, is from Andalusia. And there's a lot of pride there. A lot of pride.
Well, I literally had a customer who was Catalan tell me that my label was incorrect because a cover that we had on the wall just said Spain. I think it said Catalunya, Spain. And she said, no, it's Catalunya. It's not Spanish. It's Catalunya.
Yeah.
So I changed it. I mean, that's just my ignorance.
Hey, and like I said, a lot of pride. And that does stem from the fact that they were a number of individual kingdoms for so long.
Yeah.
So long. And that brings us to 1787. And that is actually when the Royal Economic Society of Rioja Wine Growers was founded to basically foster the cultivation. let's get that word down correctly, and commercialization of Rioja wines. This was an attempt to start branding things and determining quality and start the beginning process of standards. And it was after that, in the mid-19th century, this is when Bordeaux pops back up again. So phylloxera becomes a thing. We've talked about phylloxera before. We're going to talk about phylloxera again.
It
This
was
little louse.
Incredibly significant moment in European wine
multiple
production.
times, almost devastates huge swaths of European vineyards, almost causing certain grapes we love today to go to extinct, which is really sad that this happened. And it was, of course, Bordeaux getting hit really hard with phylloxera, so they went down to Rioja to see if there was anything they could do, anything they could learn from someone else. And that's when they run into the Rioja winemakers, and they start teaching all of these winemakers the process of aging using oak. And this is where the Rioja we know today starts to really develop, is in the mid-19th century with these techniques. And then, of course, we get to the 1850s, 1870s, pioneers like Luciana Marietta from Marqués de Marietta. This is a producer a lot of people may know. Also Camilo Hurtado de Amazaga from Marqués de Riscal. Also another producer a lot of people might know. They started to really seriously apply the methods that Bordeaux had imparted on them from when Bordeaux had visited during its crisis with phylloxera, or the Bordelais, I should say, had visited. And that's when we really start to get these modern winemaking techniques with aging being really adopted amongst the bigger houses. They, of course, had their own bout with phylloxera in 1899. It almost devastated everything. They got through it. And in 1925, Rioja was designated a DO in Spain. In fact, they became the first Spanish wine region to receive the DO, which is the denomination de origin status. This is where they are officially recognized by the Spanish government as a wine region with rules and, label laws and, whole nine yards. So 1925, they're the first.
And then they were the first, right, to get the DOCA.
They were, actually. That's coming up in a second here. Yeah, 1991. That was all of a sudden they became the first DOCA, which is a step above very strict rules.
Quality level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very strict rules.
But there are still
quality.
only 2 in Spain currently.
That's correct.
There are regions attempting to get that, but it's a very long process. Sorry?
Second one is?
Oh, Priorat.
Yes. Priorat.
And it just takes a very long time to get that status. It's 10 years. You have to have 10 years of quality production that has been assessed as the best quality to even apply for that status. So it takes a very long time for people to achieve that.
That's a lot, especially when you're talking about getting all of the winemakers in your region on board to do that very task and all of them to do it well. I mean, that's a lot of coordination.
It's a lot of coordination.
And definitely no small feat. But, you taste the wines of Rioja and you taste the wines of Priorat and you realize there's a reason.
I mean, there is.
There's a reason that they fought for that.
Some absolutely beautiful things coming out of both regions.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. The other cool thing, of course, is that Rioja has always been changing and it's still changing today. One of the things that I did note here that was really cool to me, and this is actually something that was new to me in terms of knowledge, I did not know this was happening right now, was that from 2017 to now, they are actually starting to basically really highlight the different terroir in the region. They're starting to do this Burgundy style kind of designation on top of the aging requirements for the different levels like Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva.
Okay.
They're also starting to label and pinpoint where the best terroir is, where the best vineyards, where are they getting the absolute best quality from in terms of grapes. So they're starting to do this double.
It's happening on labels now.
It's starting to happen on labels. They're really pushing for this.
I've seen that.
So they're doing single vineyard classifications, village wine levels.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's
I probably have seen that and I just didn't realize.
it's really cool. It's a whole new classification system that was just introduced, and it's called Viñedo Singular, which is the single vineyards, and then Vinos de Municipio, which is the village wines.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have absolutely seen that.
it's some
I just
super
didn't
cool
drink.
stuff.
Mhm.
I didn't know that was a thing, and now I'm going to be
Yeah.
really paying attention. In fact,
Now I will pay
I
attention.
didn't know that was a thing before like meeting with La Cuesta here,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if it's on these bottles. But we'll get to that in a second. Um, the other thing I think that everybody should also know, by the way, is that when it comes to Rioja, there are different areas in Rioja that are
Mm.
three main subregions, and that's Rioja Alta, Rioja Alavesa, and Rioja Oriental, which formerly was known as Rioja Baja. So,
Yes. And the thing to note is that Oriental is significantly warmer than the other two. It is drier and warmer, and it produces most of the garnacha for the region, which is still not the dominant grape by any stretch of the imagination. But I think 90% of the garnacha that is used in Rioja is produced in Oriental. So it's kind of a different beast to the other two.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool, that Rioja does have Garnacha, and they actually have a few other grapes as well that they are allowed to
Mm.
work with. Where we always seem to, be in this mindset that it's Tempranillo, Tempranillo, Tempranillo. Not to say
But
that Tempranillo is not the big
usually-
one.
Usually there is up to 14% of other things blended in.
Yes, yeah, and they learned
It's
a lot of that.
85%, right?
I think it's like
Am I-
85%.
Yeah,
I
okay.
want to
So
say it's 85%.
generally, in most wine regions in the world, there is a minimum requirement for you to label something as Tempranillo. In Rioja, they're not labeling it as Tempranillo
No,
anyway.
no.
But there are general consensus that if it's over 85% of one type of grape, then you only have to claim that one grape. You don't have to put all the tiny amounts of different grapes on the labeling in any way.
Right.
But generally old world wines don't do that anyway. They're labeling region, they're not labeling grape varieties. So it's really in the new world that you see that much more commonly. And yeah, it's fairly common that it's 75 to 85% is the minimum for one grape variety.
Yes. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to like really make sure that we all understood, because we're going to be opening these bottles in a moment here and tasting through and having a little bit more of a casual conversation around all this, is I want us to know about the designations and the labels. So for those who are watching, you're going to notice that there are these stickers on the back of the bottles. You probably have noticed them before, and they have actual colors to them as well as names. And so we're going to talk about what those are and what those mean here. So if you ever see a green label on the back of a Rioja bottle, and it just says, it's just a green label, and it just says, Rioja on it, that is their generic one, or Joven.
Joven. I mean, I think it's pronounced multiple ways. To be
Yeah.
honest.
And that's basically, there's no minimum aging requirements here. Just typically unoaked or minimally oaked, bottled within a year of harvest, and designed to be fresh, fruity, and consumed young. Those are the notes that I put down. And that's what it is, right? That is, it's a
And they're very
generic
fun.
label.
And they're sometimes carbonically macerated.
Yeah, there's some really cool things. So here is where you can find some, like, one either really easy drinking table wine style Rioja, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think when it comes to table wines, I mean, I think that they're doing it really well when it comes
So
to those.
well.
Very inexpensive, but
We
really
have
good
one
quality.
on our shelf that is just so unbelievably drinkable.
Yeah.
And when I was in Brookline, we could not keep it on the shelves. It
I mean-
was the one that sold instantly.
Makes total sense to me, honestly. Those wines are just, they're so crushable.
Yeah.
And, I don't
Which is
say that
not
about
a word
red
you would
wines.
usually associate with Tempranillo.
Right, yeah.
Because in most people's experience, they've had this very oaked style.
Right.
But when you see the domestic market in these places, it's often, there's probably equal amounts of this quaffable, delicious
Yeah.
fruity thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
would
always fun.
agree 100%. The next label we'll see, of course, is Crianza. That's a red label on the back. And don't mistake that, because then the next one after that is a burgundy. So you'll know the burgundy versus the red. The red's going to be lighter. The burgundy is going to be a much darker color, obviously. But the Crianza red labels, Crianza requires, so this is where we start getting into the aging requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the youngest. 2 years minimum total aging with at least 1 year in oak barrels. For whites and rosés, it requires 2 years total with at least 6 months in oak. All right. This is where we start getting some of that spice, the vanilla, those beautiful tones that.
Well, it depends what oak they use.
That's true. There is
We'll get to
predominantly, well, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But that is where we start to get these kinds of qualities. And this
less
is,
so on the whites because they tend to be more neutral.
That's true.
Oak,
that's
but
true.
Definitely on the reds.
But it's beautiful wines, absolutely gorgeous. Crianza is where you start like entering into, this is what it means when we age a wine. Then we have Reserva. This is that burgundy label, right? So our darker label on the back for those watching at home. Here it is again. It's right here on the bottom. Sometimes they put it on the neck of some bottles, but on the reds you'll generally see it on the back on the bottom. And the Reserva, this is where we really start getting interesting when it comes to aging. So the Reservas are a minimum of 3 years total aging, 1 year in oak, 6 months in bottle. The whites and rosés require 2 years total aging with at least 6 months in oak. Now, you'll notice when I said for the reds, it is 3 years total aging, 1 year in oak, and 6 months in bottle. That means that the rest of that time, the winemaker gets to decide how much is in bottle and how much is in oak barrel. This is where you start getting a more individualized like winemaking like style or vinification. Yeah, well, winemaking style. This is where they get to impart what they think needs to happen to produce the style of wine that they want to produce. So you notice how these rules are there, right? It's got these minimums. But then we still have room.
There's flexibility
for the winemaker to do what they want to do. And then, of course, we have the Gran Reserva. These are blue labels on the back.
So you can just see it there.
And you'll also notice it's got, if you're watching at home, it's got this like...
It's got this beautiful cage, wire cage.
The little gold wire
which
cage.
Which is very old school.
Yep.
And that's something that you see on Heredia wines.
And those just so everyone knows, those cages actually, that was the first attempt in order to prevent fraud. Basically, if you didn't see that on the bottle, it meant it wasn't a true, authentic Rioja wine. So
but they tended to only do that for Gran Reserva, right? Or maybe Reserva minimum.
I think they did it on Reservas as well.
Yeah, I don't think it was Crianza,
but not Crianza. But the Gran Reserva, here we go. Now we have 5 years minimum of aging, 2 years in oak, 2 years in bottle. And if you do a white or a rosé, it requires 4 years total with at least 6 months in oak. To be fair, I have never seen a white or rosé Gran Reserva wine from Rioja. I know they exist. They're very little.
What did I have?
But I've never seen one.
I might have only had the Reserva. I definitely tried one in the last 6 months that was caged and white, and it was no longer white. It was heading in the amber direction. It was a absolutely fascinating wine, but so interesting.
Yeah,
and it was like star fruit, and it went wild. It was so
absolutely beautiful to hear. I think that those, one of the things that really excites me about white wines being aged in Rioja is that they're primarily using the grape Viera, which also has another name, Macabeo, which is a grape that if anyone's a cava drinker, they have probably seen it as part of the blend in cava. It is one of the primary grapes. And when they make still wines of Viera in Rioja and they are aging these wines in neutral oak barrels, it's not what people think.
It's so textural and
gorgeous, and it brings out, it like lifts these beautiful flavors that are existing in the grape that are just, they need a little time and a little coaxing from the oak to kind of pull themselves forward. But most people, when they hear oak and white wine, they think Chardonnay. This is not that by any means. Whatever you have in your mind about,
Yeah, whatever preconceptions.
yeah, whatever preconceptions you have about oaked aged white wine and you're thinking Chardonnay, throw that out the window because this is not what Rioja is producing at all. Doesn't taste the same, doesn't smell the same, doesn't feel the same on your palate. It is very, very different and it's beautiful.
So fun.
They have actually La Cuesta. They have a Viera that does see oak aging that they are just now bringing into the Massachusetts market soon.
Are they bringing the Rosado into the?
I don't know if they're going to bring a rosé. I'm trying to talk to them about this because these are wines that we really should be experiencing. Like they're absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, and I wish that more people could try them. So I'm working on this to see if I can get. We're starting with the white. I've told them I'm interested. Told them I want to like share this with all of you, and we're gonna see if we can make this happen. Then we'll work on the rosé next because I would love to get some Rioja rosés in from them. But but we're gonna start with that one first. So with that being said, without further ado, let's
crack in
the wines.
All right.
So we have the wines. The foil is now cut on these, and we have a Corvin. This is the store's Corvin. If you have seen one of our other videos, you probably saw my Corvin. This one's a little older, not as shiny and new as mine, but that's okay.
Not as fancy.
These devices, they are workhorses, but we are going to Corvin these, and that way we don't have a timer ticking for us to basically use these bottles. But we are going to start right here with the Crianza. And I think you said that you had looked into a little bit about the winery, correct?
So a little bit, yes. I mean, I know the basics of their beginning. So they started as a winery in 1895. So they've been going for a while. And it was a father and his family. The sons got involved at some point later on and then took over the winery. And it's been pretty traditional from the start. They've kept the family involved, even though I believe a corporation owns it now. But the family very much is, I think it's six members of the family are still working in the vineyards. And they seem to have a substantial history of, which I found quite interesting, of fortified wines. I've been doing research about that in terms of Australia, because Australia's production was dominantly fortified wines for a long time, but it does seem like a lot of places in the world were defined by fortified for a long time.
Yeah.
These guys were even making a Sauterne style wine at one point.
They were. Yeah.
Which is fascinating. But yeah, I mean, the British demand for fortified wines was insatiable for a long time, but that kind of dropped away from the 60s onwards, and they went back to a very clear focus on tradition and on still production.
Yes. Actually, so they're not owned by a corporation.
Oh, they're not? Okay.
They are still family owned. The family has it as a corporation, but the corporation's owned by the family.
Oh, okay. That's a distinction. That's nice.
That's actually, you'll find that with a lot of Rioja producers, like the bigger houses or any houses that are of a certain size, they have incorporated is what they've done, but the corporation's owned by the family, right? And it just, legal designations opens up, once you're a company rather than like a family-owned property, right? You have access to capital because you can go to the banks and get things, right? It's a whole thing. So, yeah. And so you'll notice that. So Rioja is a little bit of a tricky place because unlike Bordeaux, where family-owned estates that are small are generally just a family-owned estate, the bigger houses in Bordeaux, some of them are family-owned, but then some of them are actually owned by a legit corporation where this is one part of its portfolio. Whereas in Rioja, we have less of that and more of the family is just incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Bordeaux and Champagne are there's a lot of corporation involvement.
There's a lot of
is huge.
A lot of companies moving on in, unfortunately, really, truly, unfortunately. The other cool thing actually is that it's fourth generation winemaker now. Alvaro Martinez de Castillo, who was named one of the world's top 100 master winemakers
That's
just a
right. He's an
few
NW.
short years ago,
Mm.
which is really, really cool. So this is somebody who has been recognized for
Mm.
their work. But let's dive on in. So we have the Crianza here. This is the first one that we are tasting. So it's going to
Very
be
deep
aged
color.
the least amount of time.
Mm.
And this is their 2022 vintage.
Wow.
I know.
So maybe now is the time to talk about oak usage in Rioja.
I know.
Mm.
So the primary style of oak that they are using is American oak barrels. That is the primary.
Which until recently was the predominant use.
I think so.
There seems to be a shift in Rioja to French. And people are using some French and some American.
Right.
But traditionally, not forever. It wasn't in the history for the whole time that they've existed, but
Yeah.
for a good 100 years or more.
Oh, for sure.
It was American oak dominant.
Yeah. And the really cool thing for everyone to understand as well with this is the biggest differences between American oak and French oak is how loud and how quiet the flavors and aromas are that the barrels impart.
Mm-hmm.
They're both going to do the job, but
American is loud.
Is loud. American oak just really
like Americans are loud.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yes, we are. But American oak like punches with flavor and aroma, whereas French oak is very subtle. It's softer. So you still get that vanilla tone from French oak. You can still get that. You can still get spice tones, but they're just
Definitely
not
spice.
as pronounced. And I think that makes for a very particular style of wine that's a bit, I don't want to use terms like elegant or refined, but I think people understand what I'm trying to say if I say that, right?
It is understood that it's a little more elegant in its incorporation into the overall effect. But American oak is immediately distinctive on the nose. It has completely like a different set of aromas than French does. So we're talking...
This does here too.
Oh, so we're talking the two overarching that you will get in some amount or other is coconut and dill. So they are the ones to look out for. If you're smelling something strong and you're not sure what it is, just ask yourself, is it coconut or dill or a bit of both? And if so, it's American oak. American oak has been used in some amount.
For sure. This definitely has American oak.
Whew.
Very clear clearly. As day. Like, this is American oak.
And it's such a different experience. It's so pleasant, but it's strong. It's just so clear.
I mean, the vanilla is jumping out of the glass. Like, I am just getting so much vanilla. There is that coconut in there too. I get that as well.
Coconut, yeah.
But then pair it with this beautiful, like, bright red fruit tones of like strawberry, cherry, raspberry, like it's like it's a fruit bouquet with these other aromas as well, just paired together, and it's gorgeous.
I'm going to say something now.
Yeah.
That I've never heard anyone speak about.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if it's just my inexperience. Can you smell the tannin? Like, I feel like I can smell the tannin. It's so clear in this glass. And it's probably just my experience with American oak in the past, and I know it's there. But it is...
I'm not going to say that is a wild thing to say. It's like when somebody says...
It feels wild, but maybe it exists. I don't know.
It's just like when somebody says, I can smell the acid, right? Or I can smell, name a component.
You can smell alcohol,
You can smell the alcohol.
But, actually, in this, it's not that loud in this mix. But
no.
But in terms, I just 14%? Know there will be tannin here.
Okay.
And maybe it's not my nose. Maybe it's just, I know that the oak will lead to that.
That's right.
Because it's fresh.
We do have two types of tannins here, because tannins come from the skins of grapes, and tannins come from, quite honestly, it comes from the skin or the outside of really so many different plants, That's really what it
I
is. I
mean,
don't know where I'm
black
going with that.
tea has a huge amount of
Black tea,
tannin.
yep.
Yeah.
A lot of tea has tannin. Tannin is basically on, it's a component of the plant. And so you're going to find it
Usually found in the skin.
on wood as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
So when we talk about tannin, there's two different types of tannin in wine. There's the skins of the grape. That's the naturally occurring tannin for the wine, I should say, naturally occurring. And then we have the oak, which is something we have now added to this, right?
And both are in control of the winemaker.
Yes.
The winemaker will know exactly how much they want to come from the grape itself and how much they want to come from oak if they're using it.
And that's very important because that's going to really determine what this wine is going to feel like and taste like in the end. Let's actually give this a taste here.
All right.
I think this is yeah.
So rich.
Really?
So
right?
rich.
Isn't this exciting? I just absolutely adore these wines. After meeting with the vineyard rep, tasting through them, they're just gorgeous.
Whoa.
Right?
The tannin. Oh my gosh. I wasn't wrong. But it's not harsh. I mean, oak usage is going to impart tannin. Unless it's neutral. Unless it's really, really, really neutral.
Those are lovely tannins, though.
They hit you, and then they just kind of incorporate with the rest of the mouth feel.
However, you can tell there's high acid in this.
Yes.
And that tannin
and Tempranillo is a high acid grape.
It is. It is. And that tannin, though, is really helping to cut through that acid and soften it. You can tell that the tannin is doing the work to pull the acid back. So you're not like salivating like crazy, feeling like you need a glass of water, which is really what I love about how the tannins and what the winemaker does really determines how well balanced this wine is. Like, this is gorgeous because it's got the acid, right? So now we can cut through something that's like a fattier style dish,
Or a medium high acid. In terms of Tempranillo itself, I think it's
more in the medium to medium high.
Yeah.
But it's still this is still a decent amount of acid. You can tell it's there.
And it's also the way you feel acid is, at least for me, I think it's fair to say, directly related to the body of the wine as well. You might not notice the acid the bigger the body. For instance, like a Cab Merlot, they can be very high acid wines, but you don't feel it as keenly because there's so much else going on in the mouth. Whereas this is not, I mean, although it's dense, but it's not a very heavy bodied grape because the skins aren't massively thick. They're kind of medium.
This is where the wood tannin, the oak tannin does a bit more work here. The other thing too is it's soft. It's plush. Like, this is soft and plush on the palate. This is enjoyable. This is one of those reds where it's got some body to it, right? Rioja tends to be a medium bodied wine. However,
the acid does really sing at the end. It really
does, right?
Just lifts the whole palate.
But this is a medium body wine that I could drink on its own, no problem, because of how plush and soft it feels. For me personally, I do.
Yeah, for me personally, I would need something, I think.
I have to remind everybody watching and listening, though, that yes, we all have a different palate. We all have different preferences. So what I may be able to consume without food is not what I expect everyone else to be able to do. I'm also one of those people who loves acid in wine, and I will.
And I think the longer you stay in the wine industry, the more you gravitate to acid.
I've shared Brut Natur champagnes that are just screaming with acid with people, and people be like, "Oh no, this is way too much," and I'm sitting there going, "This is lovely.
The greatest thing." Yeah,
I'm just gonna drink this all day.
It's beautiful.
I know.
It's so. I mean, if you're going to define a grape by its fruit characteristic, I think it's fair to say that Tempranillo is defined by cherry, but it's got so much else going on in the glass as well. It has that really lush cherry and that bright, fresh cherry. It's not in any way cooked or dried. It is so fresh on the palate. But it's so lifted with the acid on the end. Are we moving on? Oh gosh.
We are moving on. I know, I'm not trying to rush you. That's why we have a spittoon here. We can pour a little
so
out.
wasteful to do that.
I know. Don't worry. I'm going to give you a smaller pour here.
Yeah.
This is one of my curses in life is I have been told by those in the wine industry before that I do an Andrew pour.
I call it, well, it's not really relevant in this context, but diva glass is what we call just filling it way beyond where it should be filled.
Oh my gosh. Diva glass.
A diva glass.
I kind of love that, honestly.
Yeah, it's great. It's really useful.
So now we have the Reserva. Now here's the cool thing. This is their Reserva from, why am I not finding the year? There it is on the bottle, 2014.
2014.
So this is 10 years of age. So there's a couple things I want to note here. One, first and foremost, just so we understand this particular wine, this wine is only made in the best vintages. That's not true for every Reserva. That is not true for every producer. And 2014 is over a decade of aging before. This is current release. Like, this is a decade they hold it back before current release. That's also not very common in Rioja. There are a few producers that do that are well known. We mentioned one earlier, Lopez de Heredia.
I thought it was this one that was 10 years. It's this?
This is held for 10 years.
So, okay, then question for you. Do they do that for every Reserva? Or are they doing it for the vintage?
They are doing that for every Reserva that they make because the Reservas are only made in the best years and they hold them back for an extended amount of aging. They're going above and beyond. So this is not a wine that is going to be around every single year. There could be a skip. And if there is a skip, it's because the grape quality, the growing conditions that year were not up to par. And they cannot make the wine the way they really want to make the wine. So they just don't do it.
So then what did they say to you? Is there distinction between Reserva and Gran Reserva?
So their distinction between Reserva and Gran Reserva is...
apart from age.
Yeah, is pretty similar to what it is for everyone else. They just decide that every time they're going to make the Gran Reserva and that the Reserva will be the one that they are actually going to skip years for. I don't know necessarily why that is. I didn't do a deep enough dive. I have not figured that one out yet. But I do know that the Gran Reserva...
I thought I read that they also... That's not every vintage as well.
This is definitely not.
Wow.
This one...
Okay, interesting.
This one they keep on chugging along with.
Right.
They may skip a year for Gran Reserva, but they did not impart that information on me. The way they spoke about it was that the Gran Reserva is more consistent.
Is there any in the choice of grapes that they use, is the Gran Reserva the better quality grape overall, or?
I think that the Gran Reserva is the better quality grape, but I think it's that the Reserva is, because there's probably more of the Reserva, I think that's why they might skip certain years and maybe make more Crianza some years.
Okay.
I think that's why they're doing that, is because they want the Reserva to be high quality as well. And so if they can't get all of their vineyards to be on that level because of the growing conditions, then the Gran Reserva gets made, but the Reserva just might not be made, and they might make another Crianza. Okay. They actually have another bottling of Crianza that they make that we are not tasting. But this is the one that's kind of like a higher tier Crianza.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, and that's the beauty of Rioja, is like everybody is following the rules, but they're all kind of doing things a little bit on their own.
Well, yeah, I would be very interested to know if they're pulling these grapes from different... like one's Alta, one's Alveso, or something like that.
Yeah.
They seem to have mostly Alta.
They're mostly Alta. They're based in Haro, which is in the northwest of Rioja. It's in the Rioja Alta sub-region. So of the 4 sub-regions, that's where they are. This is one of the more famous sub-regions. This is where you find a lot of the producers that most people are aware of are coming from. And that's where they are. And I think all of their vineyards are in that area. So, but... the other thing I wanted to note with them, this is the other thing that's really cool, is that, or not with them particularly, but for all the viewers at home, for everybody listening, this is really important. This is how you get to taste a wine that has been aged extensively and not spend a fortune. Let me be clear on what the price is of the Reserva. $46 a bottle is the retail cost
My
of the
gosh.
Reserva for 10 years of age.
Incredible.
If you went to Bordeaux and did the same thing for a lot of like high quality producers in Bordeaux, you're spending hundreds minimum. Minimum. Don't even
For the
think
first growths and
Don't even
maybe
think about-
even second growths.
first growth, second growth. You're
Yeah.
not you're not hundreds. You're at thousands.
Yeah.
For age of 10 years, you're at thousands of dollars a bottle.
Gosh.
This is $46 a bottle. This is the one way that I recommend everybody taste aged wine. This is how you can know whether you like wines with age or you don't like wines with age, because it's not for everybody. But when it has been sitting in the bottle for 10 years and you're smelling it, I'm watching you do it, right? There are aromas and flavors that lift out of the wine that are not present or not present in a prominent fashion, right? When the wine is young. You need time for some of these things to develop, and that is what you're getting out of this. And
This is the beauty of aging.
I love this wine.
It creates compounds that don't exist to begin with.
Oh,
and
wow.
I know. And that that you only get from age. You're not going to get it from just oak, a year of oak. You're not going to get it from a year of bottle age. You're going to get it from more than 5 years minimum of aging, and this is 10. So we are getting notes in here that we definitely didn't see at all in the first one.
Oh my
So
gosh.
for me, this is what's the thing that immediately hits me when I have aged wines is soy.
Oh.
And it's not, soy can sometimes be used as a fault guideline, but I get it in basically every aged wine that has seen oak.
That is interesting, actually. That is, I know you say it, and now I do get a hint of
Other
it.
people would use absolutely different language to describe that. But for me, it's like literally umami soy sauce.
I get, like, when I smell a wine like this, and this is what I'm getting from this, but when I smell a wine like this, there are two things that hit me immediately. One is baking spices. One is like this baked fruit pie with baking spices and vanilla just kind of really prominent, right? So you get this like cooked fruit in the best way possible, right? The other thing that hits me is tobacco. It's like a cigar.
But like dried leaf.
Dried leaf.
Yeah.
Like when you go to a cigar shop, you grab a cigar and you smell it, right? Don't light it, just smell it. That is coming through here. And sometimes, depending on the wine, I get leather. I don't really get leather prominently personally in this one. I get maybe a touch of it.
There's a touch, but it's
more the tobacco and more of the like the baked pie with spices and vanilla, right? Like those are the things that I get, and they're just incredibly beautiful, like absolutely gorgeous. And it makes me sad that you can't get this in a young wine, that you have to let it age for like a decade, right, to get this. But it also makes me happy because, you know, you're tasting a moment in time, which is cool. And that's one of the beauties of wine, right? We're tasting a moment in time.
And we're tasting a place.
And I know that if I grab the same bottle on the next vintage they make, it's not going to smell identical. Something's going to be a little bit more or a little bit less prominent. And it tells you a lot about the growing conditions of that year, how the harvest went, what the winemaker did, you know, what the blend is, right? We talk about like 14%-ish, right? Other varietals they could use, but they might change what that is from year to year. And so I love how you let a wine age for 10 years and this is what you get. And it really puts a lot into focus for you as what's going on here.
And it's also interesting to note that a lot of the wines that we've been trying, especially if we're trying the same producer with just different aging requirements of the bottles, it's quite common that the younger ones are higher alcohol.
Yes.
And that in this case, 14%, 13.5. So it's they're being more judicious with their picking times,
Yes.
probably the way they're growing the grapes. They're aiming for freshness so
Right.
that when it ages, this one is still so fresh on the palate.
Oh, it's
I actually am not getting much of the nose on the palate.
no, it's
It's still so fresh.
beautiful fruit, very prominent there. You get a little bit of that vanilla, right? A little bit of that baking spice, right? They come through in the palate, but again, you're right. They're not super prominent. Now,
But the fruit is like, there is a touch of maybe dried, not necessarily
Maybe.
cooked, but it's still vibrant.
the tannins completely soften.
Completely softening out.
This wine is silky on
Yeah.
that. It is a silky texture. It is smooth. The tannins are no longer like high
Dominant in the
and
mix.
dominant.
Yeah.
The acid is smoothed out here. Like time has done this wine wonders. Not that it wouldn't have been great if it was young like the Crianza, but
it's just a different thing.
it's just a whole different
Yeah, it's not. They're aiming for a different product.
This is why I love Rioja. Is that this is what you can get out of Rioja. Sub 100, sub 50, sub $50
50
for that. I mean, blows my mind every time. I know what I'm getting. I know what's going to be in the bottle, and yet every time it blows my mind in the best way possible. Absolutely.
The acid is, yeah. I mean, tannin and acid on the first were punchy in the best way possible. And then the word for this one is silky in both senses.
Yeah.
Tannin and acid. The tannin it sticks with you. I've still got it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. We're going to jump into the last bottle here as I get the Corvin ready. This is the Gran Reserva. This is 2012 is the vintage.
So tell me about the aging on this one.
So this one is 5 years aging minimum required.
Mm-hmm. And what have they done?
And they have done an extensive amount of oak aging with this, is what they have opted to do. So
Okay.
they have followed all the minimums, but in terms of the added time that they are allowed to kind of play with in that 5 years, they have decided that oak is going to be their primary.
And I wasn't paying attention on the previous one, but this looks at least unfined, if not unfiltered.
That is a really good question.
The first looked like it was filtered.
I don't think any of these are unfined or unfiltered.
Okay.
But there is some sediment in the bottles from aging. Something
yes,
that everybody,
yeah,
obviously everyone at home should know is a thing. If you buy an older wine, there is a very high likelihood of some sediment in the bottle. It is safe to consume. It's just
completely safe.
Yucky how it feels.
So generally that's why we either decant or let it sit upright for an extended period of time so that the sediment sinks to the bottom. And generally if you're in a fine dining situation, they're not going to pour the complete bottle for you because
Right.
it's not pleasant to
You
get
don't
a
want
mouthful
what's
of
left in the
sediment.
bottom.
It's just not, yeah. It's not. I mean, it's more texturally unpleasant than there's no flavor that you're getting that's different. It's just you're just getting a mouthful of stuff.
It's like having sand in your water.
Well,
I mean,
a little less aggressive.
But
yeah.
But you get the point, right? Like, yeah, it's that texture. You don't want that in your mouth. You just don't. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's yucky.
Okay, so okay, we didn't talk about the color. Beautiful, vivid garnet, and then with aging, the color has been knocked out, and we're talking about a little bit of a browning rim, but much more so in the second wine, not the third wine.
Yeah.
So this is not as aged, correct?
So the 2012.
I mean, it's 2 years older.
It's 2 years older, but 2012 is current release for this wine. You can just, I think the big thing to note between the two of them is the fact that because that's 2014 is the time of which this wine is released, it's seeing more time in bottle. Like if you really think about the math, right? 3 years required aging, right? and then you have to bottle it, right?
Yeah.
This is 5 years, and then you have to bottle it. But because this is sitting around for longer, it's sitting more time in bottle. And I think that that is really changing the character of the wine in a way that is just slightly different than the Gran Reserva, because
And
it's
that would
getting
make
more
sense.
time in the oak and less time in the bottle.
Yeah. The notes here are so much more umami.
Right.
And that comes from bottle aging, not necessarily oak aging.
Exactly. Yeah, this is...
See, this is where I'm really getting
wow.
those kind of calmed down American oak notes.
Yeah.
So like beautiful, like a coconut, those kind of pies that you make with just like desiccated coconut and sugar,
Yes.
brown sugar. Oh,
actually, there's a lot of coconut in
delicious.
this. It's really cool. Absolutely gorgeous. Just, I mean, this is wine on a whole nother level, honestly.
That I could literally huff that all day. That's
I know, right?
Just beautiful.
This is one of those wines, and you'll hear me say it over and over. I want to make a candle out of this. I want my living room to smell like this. It's
and this is baked
beautiful.
Fruit. This is
very serious.
That
like
one
baked
had
fruit.
kind of still fresh vibes to it, weirdly, but this is everything has the needle has moved into aging in every possible sense of the word.
Yeah,
in a perfect way.
Actually, you know how much this one is?
Am I guessing?
Go ahead, take a guess.
65.
You are right. Literally on the money. There you go.
Knew it.
Yep, $65. That's why I love these wines.
Oh,
these are representative of what some of the most famous producers in Rioja have done, but their prices are lower because they're not as well known as the bigger guys are known.
yeah.
You know, they're not out there in the same way. And that's what I love about these. Because most of those other bigger producers, their Gran Reservas are going to be like $100. Some of them are like $300. I've seen some that are $400.
Yeah.
I mean, they get up there. So to basically get what is considered to be the best in terms of aging for the wines, right? Like the best time, allotted to aging, most care given to, and yet we're still sub $100, which is absolutely
sub $70.
lovely.
That's crazy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Wow, this is truly gorgeous. Yeah. Everything is harmonious in that glass. It's working so well right now.
Yeah. So, with that being said, I would say that, I think that we have gone through everything that we need to go through for Rioja, everything we need to go through for this producer. However, we're going to revisit this region. We're going to revisit new wines from this region. We're going to, go
There's
through all
so
of that
much
stuff.
going on in this area.
But for now, I would say, I think it's time
to sign out.
To sign off and say thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Or watching if you're on YouTube.
Thanks for coming on this journey with us.
Yeah. If you are interested in these wines, I can always get more of these wines. So you can visit the link in the bio. You can find our contact information, reach out. These are not wines that are on a shelf in any of our Vino Divino locations. They run through VDV Select through me. And that's because sometimes these wines run out and we put things on the shelves that I think are a little more consistent, and we reserve the things that can run out multiple times a year because of quantity. Those come through me personally. So, but we also have a wine club, which allows you to find these kinds of things as well. So if you are not already, I would say subscribe to our wine club. It's $99 a month, 4 bottles every month. Family producers and
very interesting bottles.
Yeah, unknown regions, varietals, styles. It's a great way to explore.
We'll throw classics in there as well.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. So, like the La Cuesta could make it in there.
It could.
You never know.
You never know.
It's not this month. It's not this coming month, I should say.
Sure.
But you never know. You never know. So,
exactly.
With that being said, I think
we should cheers.
Cheers.